Thank you for joining me today. It's Brian Gubernick, and welcome to the No Days Off podcast, where we believe that every single day brings a new opportunity to get better. Today, I want to talk a little bit around a conversation I had with my partner, Ben Kinney, when we were running our last Metrix Masterminds event in March, earlier this year. Now, Ben and I have been running Metrix for a number of years now, and we go all different sorts of places in the topics that we cover. Leadership, wealth, tax, you name it, storytelling. I mean, we're all over the place. Well, this particular day, we decided to discuss what Ben called the 4 killers in a recession. And it was a very, very well-received segment by our mastermind members, right? In our mastermind, we've got some of the best in business. You know, it's not a small price to pay to get in that room. And so the caliber of individuals we have is really, really high. And when Ben and I ran through this 4 killers in a recession, it really seemed to resonate with the room. And I was recently reviewing these 4 killers, just kind of reminding myself of what they are, in that, you know, I don't necessarily think we're going to be going through a recession. You know, probability put on that by Goldman Sachs and the other, you know, investment bankers out there is not all that high, but it is safe to say that we have different pockets of our economy and even the industry in which I operate in real estate that have recession-like things going on. So I was reviewing this 4 killers in a recession, and a funny thought I had. These 4 killers in a recession, they're not just 4 killers in a recession, they're also 4 killers in a thriving market. Maybe just 4 killers in business in general. And I want to share them with you today to just get you thinking and for you to reflect on maybe some of your behaviors, some of your thoughts, some of the things you're experiencing right now. Number 1, lack of discipline. Now remember, we're talking about 4 killers in a recession. Number 1 was lack of discipline. Lack of discipline will kill you in a difficult market. What do I mean when I say lack of discipline? In business and investment, wealth building, all of these things, we've got a recipe. We know we've got a recipe, oftentimes one that's going to work. Why do we know it's going to work? Because there's people that have come before us. There's not a lot of new thought out there in business and wealth. There's plenty of books that we've all read. There's plenty of things we could all study. There is a recipe. Now, the recipe is not the hard part. It's following the recipe that's so challenging, especially in a recession. So the number 1 killer in a recession is just lack of discipline. In other words, not honoring the ingredients, not honoring the recipe that gets us through that recession. Changing some of the ingredients, tweaking things because we think we may know better or we see an angle. And I understand we're entrepreneurs, and so, you know, that's not unnatural for us to look for different ways. I don't necessarily want to discourage that, but I think it's a killer if you lack discipline and you fall off in terms of recipe, fall off in terms of effort. I think lack of discipline plays into effort. Fall off in terms of hiring the right people or surrounding yourself in the right environment, starting to get a little lackadaisical with respect to who we're bringing in. Lack of discipline is a killer in a recession. Now, lack of discipline also could be a killer in a thriving market. You start to get creative. You start to take more risk. Even though you know the recipe to continue thriving, you start to maybe think you're a bit more of a genius than you are. And maybe it's the market, or maybe that's just me talking. You know, maybe it's just my personal experience. So number 1, lack of discipline. Number 2, in terms of killers in a recession, but maybe even killer in a thriving market, number 2 is optimism. Optimism. Now, in a recession, what do we mean? What do we mean when we say optimism? What we're talking about is this, you know what, it's going to be okay. Or you know what, in a couple weeks, this will take care of itself. Or you know what, I'm going to take a break and I'm just going to give it a minute and things will rebound. Or this decision I'm making that it'll work itself out. Well, in a recession, in a market that's trending down, in an economy that's trending down, your optimism or over-optimism can get you killed. I can tell you I saw this firsthand. Fortunately, I didn't experience firsthand, but if I go all the way back to when I started my real estate career in 2005, 6, 7, I think many of us know what was going on then. Well, when that market crashed, when things went a little sideways, I saw a lot of my peers in the industry just kind of bury their head in the sand and say, you know what, it'll work itself out. And it did work itself out. It just took about 6 years. That optimism, that optimism, not making expense cuts, not pivoting quickly, that can kill you in a recession. Now, it can also kill you in a thriving market if you think about it, right? A thriving market oftentimes will make for a lot of geniuses, meaning that the market might be more responsible for your success than maybe the decisions you're making. And so placing too great an emphasis on your own abilities, that optimism, it could really bite you. So number 2, optimism. Number 3, killer in a recession, but maybe also a killer in a thriving market, boredom. Boredom is a killer. Why in a recession is boredom a killer? Because typically the only way to get through a difficult market is to form habits around those things that people around you those that aren't winning around you aren't doing. You got to literally form habits around, the simple tasks that are simple when you write them, but difficult to execute. And you got to do it over and over and over and over again until it gets so monotonous and so boring that usually just on the other side of that is where the success happens. If you're unwilling to get bored, right? Like if you fear boredom, it's going to be tough to survive that recession so that you could thrive on the other side of it. Now, in a thriving market, boredom, same sort of thing. Like you're doing something that's working and you're doing it on Monday and you're doing it on Tuesday and you're doing it on Wednesday. You do this over and over again, you get bored. Even though it's generating results, boredom can start to creep in. And so what do you maybe do? You try to spice things up. You pivot a little bit. And what you learn, maybe the hard way, is that, because you feared that boredom or you didn't enjoy that boredom, you pivoted. Sure, you got a new look at things, but it's maybe not generating the results that you had prior. So you start backpedaling. Boredom can kill you in a thriving market as well. The last thing, impatience. Impatience is a killer in a recession. I just kind of touched on this when I was discussing boredom, but you have got to be insanely patient when working your way through a downward trending market. When you're in the moment, when you're in it, it feels like an eternity. I understand. I've been through it a couple times. It feels like an eternity. You've got to stay the course. Right? This is more than boredom here. This is just staying the course and grinding it out day in and day out and being patient, knowing that the steps that you're taking will in fact put you in the direction you need to go, which is going to take time. Now, we've all had these experiences where in the moment it feels like an eternity, but then years down the road, you look back at it and you're like, oh, that wasn't too long. That wasn't a big deal. The truth of the matter is, no, you have different perspective. Your perspective changed. But in the moment, it's really tough. You've got to fight through that and you've got to be patient. Same thing goes in a thriving market. Impatience can kill us even in a thriving market because we want more. We want to grow faster. We move the goalpost. I'm sure we're all guilty of that. And you move the goalpost and that's a sign of just impatience. Maybe you didn't even get to the end zone yet, but you still push the goalpost back and push it back and push it back. That is a degree of impatience because it's taking a little longer to get to that goal, or you keep call it what it is, moving that goal. So impatience could be a killer. So lack of discipline, number 1, optimism, number 2, boredom, number 3, and impatience, number 4. These 4 killers, these are 4 killers in a recession. They're also potentially 4 killers even in a thriving market. So the focusing question or questions for you today, where are these things maybe showing up for you right now? Are you displaying any characteristics that, might be aligned with, say, lack of discipline? Are you maybe a bit too optimistic? Should you maybe black hat a little bit? I'm not saying be a pessimist. I'm just saying, should we be scrutinizing certain decisions a bit more? Are you feeling a little bored, right? Because of the monotony of what you're doing that very well may be working great, but you're an entrepreneur. You do different things. You try different things. Are you showing up in certain areas of your business world a little bit bored? And lastly, are you remaining patient, or I should say, are you displaying any degree of impatience? So where are you at? Recognize that. It's an exercise around self-awareness. Now that you know where you're at, what action steps can you take? What action steps can you take? And I think really the action step is bring awareness to it and knock it off. Be aware. That's all I have for you today. The No Days Off podcast. Thank you so much for listening. And remember, every single day brings a new opportunity to get better. So let's get after it.